know when you have an idea and your eyes brighten a little and your heart starts to beat up a little bit and your fingers get a little stiff and all of a sudden your brain, your mind organizes itself around that idea and you know what you want to do and you can't wait to do it. The idea itself takes on sort of a motivational force. It's the moment of inspiration, and it's a little addicting for me. It happens when I cook dinner a lot, often actually, almost every night. I come home late from work and I'm hoping that I have leftovers in the refrigerator, but no, I have chicken that needs to be cooked that night. So I sort of, open up and see what I have to play with. What are my ingredients to play with? And I have a lot of carrots and ginger and sweet potatoes. Okay, that's a start. So I pull out the onions and the ginger and I start to think, oh, cumin seed. And then it hits me. The moment of inspiration when I realize cardamom. And all of a sudden, my onions are sautéing and the cumin seed and the cardamom is in there and it's starting to smell really good and I am on my way to be making this unbelievable quasi-Moroccan chicken stew with root vegetables. And it started with the cardamom. It's actually a very simple recipe, right? It's equal parts creative and critical thinking around a base of information that you have to work with. And in this case, the information, the ingredients in my refrigerator. So the idea that I want to share with you today, it's about what happens when that moment of inspiration comes into the classroom. Oh. Because it's absolutely transformational. Absolutely. It's exciting, it's compelling, it's motivating. And when inspiration is integrated with academic learning through the arts, it transports students' sense of self and their sense of achievement. Arts integration leads to academic achievement. I'm the director of the Enchanted Circle Theater, and we're based in Holyoke, Massachusetts. We are an educational theater company that specializes in arts integration. We use theater as a dynamic teaching tool to engage, enhance, and inspire learning. We work in preschools, public school classrooms, university classrooms. We work in theaters and museums. We work with social service agencies. We work in adult learning centers and in housing units with people of all ages and abilities to engage, enhance, and inspire learning through the arts. When I look at this picture, what I see is two really focused young people concentrating, putting their attention on a moment. They're feeling empowered, they're working together, and they are communicating what it feels like to be tough Boris, the pirate, in Mem Fox's storybook. These are students, kindergarten students in Holyoke Public Schools, and they are wholly engaged in our Literacy Through the Arts program called From Page to Stage. The moment of inspiration happens in the classroom as students and teachers and teaching artists explore the story, physically embodying vocabulary, becoming personally invested in character, setting, and plot. Their self-esteem rises, their public speaking skills. These are 21st century learning skills that they are working on with disciplined focus as they are creating a play. It's an arts integrated curriculum, a response to literature where they're studying English language arts concepts alongside theater arts, and learning happens. The Kennedy Center defines arts integration as an approach to teaching in which students construct and demonstrate understanding through an art form. Arts integration links curriculum content with imagination, with artistic discipline, and with individual inquiry. Theater, dance, music, literary arts, visual arts, it all works. They are dynamic teaching tools and a way of accessing, processing, and interpreting information. And because all subjects can be explored through the arts, arts integration is extraordinarily adaptable to any learning environment. And they give students equal access to inspired learning opportunities. The underlying principle is when you tap into a student's imagination, you engage them in the creative process of learning. And when students are engaged, they ask questions, they solve problems, they invent ideas, they generate ideas, and ideas are exciting. But when it's their ideas, it's inspiring. And so the creative connection serves to make content learning relevant to people's lives, which makes it meaningful and memorable, which then helps you retain that information that you've so enjoyed learning. Let me set the stage for you a little bit about Holyoke. The city has been deemed underperforming by the state, and like many other gateway cities, the majority of students in Holyoke are second language learners, and they're not doing well on the high stakes tests. We have one of the highest dropout rates in the state. Well, Enchanted Circle Theater has been called the antidote to the dropout rate. And I believe it's because arts integration is a turnaround tool. It engages students in all aspects of learning: cognitive, social, emotional, physical, aesthetic, and it works from the most disengaged to the most advanced, from preschool up to adult learners, in math, science, everything, in life. There is growing quantitative evidence that the arts impact learning, how people learn. Test scores go up. Attendance records go up. Behavior issues go down. Major studies are being done across the country, and they particularly cite measurable outcomes in urban, underserved communities. So my charge to you is to spark your creative imagination about ways to bring inspiration through the arts into public education so that all students have access to inspired learning opportunities. But the thing is, we can't count on inspiration, and you certainly can't force it. But what you can do is let it in. Open up opportunities for inspiration to happen and for it to cause its magic. A 5th grade teacher shared this story with me. Her class was reading from her science book about molecules, and as they're reading, she looks out into the room and nothing. Glazed faces, they are barely there. So the moment of inspiration happened for her, and she thought to herself, what would Enchanted Circle Theater do? We had worked together a lot the year before, and she had gone through our creative classrooms training. So she asked the students to close their books, and she did so dramatically. And then she asked 8 students to come up to the front of the room to be molecules. She wanted them to act out what she said as she read from their textbook. And so she read, "Heat is a form of energy. Since molecules are particles of matter, it takes energy to move them. As the temperature rises, it causes the molecules to vibrate. Right? So you can see it, right? They're starting to vibrate. And she continues, as the molecules heat up further, they begin to bounce and move around vigorously. So you can see the fifth graders bouncing, right? They begin to bounce into each other, separating them. And as molecules separate, at which point more students come up, because you need more molecules because they've separated, as molecules separate, the amount of matter found in the given volume or space decreases. If there is enough heat, intermolecular bonds can break into even smaller molecules. Well, so fast forward to the end of the year when they're taking their standardized tests. And there's a question about molecules and what happens as they heat up. And you know those students are going to remember their friends vibrating and bouncing into each other and having a blast learning about molecules. That concept is in their visual and muscle memory. They understood it in a new way. They got it. They didn't just read about being molecules, they were molecules. You want first graders to understand the value of coins? Well, ask them to become people pennies and create a money machine in your classroom and have the little people pennies going through the tunnel, and 5 of them will come out together as a nickel. You want 8th graders to consider why it's important to study the Civil War today? Well, ask them to do research on historical photographs and to go to the Library of Congress and research slave narratives, and then put those slave narratives together with the photographs and create an original play. I promise you, those students will become engaged and excited by what they know, and they're going to want to know more. There's so many conversations in public education today about standards-based learning and about the National Common Core, what everyone needs to know. Teachers are mandated to teach standards curriculum. But for learning to be memorable and meaningful, it needs a little bit of inspiration. And the arts bring it. Enchanted Circle has been teaching science through the arts for several years now in the Holyoke Public Schools. We've been working with a naturalist, and together each year we create a new curricula and we bring it into the 4th, 5th, and 6th grade classrooms. Magnets, electricity, earth science, weather. Well, this was a unit on animal adaptations, one of the standards-based curricula that 5th graders are supposed to know. They're expected to understand behavioral and physical adaptations that animals have developed in order to survive. So we cover that, but then we take it the next step. We ask them to invent an animal that can survive in the most extreme habitats, inside a volcano, at the highest peak of the Himalayas, at the bottom of the ocean floor. You want to see 5th graders hooked in? Ask them to be inventive. It's the same recipe. Equal parts creative and critical thinking, this time based on state-mandated academic curriculum. The content covered, their thinking inspired, their energy focused. Their writing was prolific, their costumes inventive, and they were having a ball. And all the while they were working on speaking and listening skills and self-presentation skills and collaboration skills, civic engagement in the classroom, while they were inventing a performance. These are the audience members watching them perform. You can just feel how those 5th graders would feel looking out and getting this response. It inspires learning. The teacher in that classroom wrote, "Several of my students who resist any academic work became engaged in this curriculum. We engaged the disengaged. 2 of my autistic students that do not participate in most class activities were eager to participate in your adaptation program. My shy students found their voice." Another teacher told me last year that he thought the greatest takeaway his students had from working with us, and I love that he said the greatest takeaway, because that meant there were a few. But that the greatest takeaway was that his students learned to strive for excellence in their own work. What they were creating mattered to them. It made them want to be in school. Creativity is an essential ingredient in learning because it makes learning relevant and personal. It makes whatever you're doing matter. So consider the classics as a way of helping students develop their voice and their ability to put themselves out there in the world. During our summer acting Shakespeare program in the Holyoke Public Schools, we invite inspiration in by asking students to give Romeo personal advice. One student said, "Dear Romeo, your life did not need to end in tragedy. I don't believe it's ever a good decision to choose death over life. You were young, and you had your whole life to live for. You had a mentor. Friar Lawrence was someone you could trust and talk to. It's better to seek help and guidance before you make such severe decisions to take your own life. Sincerely, Carlos." These students underperforming? I don't think so. Their production of Romeo and Juliet was stunning. Theater is a discipline, and they worked hard on it because they were invested in the outcome. These urban teens understood Shakespearean language, they understood the context, they understood the references. They were there. They made those text-to-self connections because they wanted to. They were practicing their lines at recess. They were texting each other on the bus, their lines practicing together. They were focused. Middle school students focused and inspired. So there are a few things I know in this world. Creativity is inspiring. Self-expression is empowering. Collaboration is expansive, and the feeling of accomplishment feeds the soul. So many of the youth we work with are navigating life's most difficult realities. We need to give our students the tools that they need to be able to rise against whatever struggles come their way. And I believe tapping into creativity and letting inspiration in is the key. So I don't know what I'm going to cook for dinner tonight, but I have a feeling I'm going to get inspired. And I know you will too. Thank you.